What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'll talk about some very key levels to watch for as time goes on and what's going on with the charts. Just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total. And the offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, so as far as the market's going, we're going to likely gap up today. Typically, when we gap up, we do see some downside moves, like a little bit of a dip when we open before we try to go higher. And in this case, I still think there's a very good chance we try to go a little higher for the time being. There might be some temporary relief for the markets, but you guys already know my view that we will eventually dump to the 580s on SPY over the next couple of weeks, especially as we get very close to like the mid-March to April period. But for the short term, there might be some temporary relief first. We might try to bounce a little bit first before we get a bigger move to the downside. So let's talk about some data. We got the GDP growth rate quarter over quarter at about 2.3%. Keep in mind that's just an estimate, and this is basically very close to what we were expecting. Not bad whatsoever. But the GDP price index is at 2.4%. This is a little bit above expectations. This basically tells us that the prices of our goods that are produced, the goods and services produced in the US, basically went up a little bit above expectations. So that is a little bit inflationary. And besides that, initial jobless claims is a little bit above expectations. So much of the data was like so, not too bad, not too good. Consumer spending is decent overall, so we'll see how it ends up going. With that being said, I also want to mention that we have Bard giving a speech at 10 a.m. Then we have some manufacturing numbers coming out at 11 o'clock a.m., which is actually a little bit minor. Bill auctions as well. And then we have Bowman and a bunch of Fed speakers. So minor data today and a bunch of Fed speakers. That's all we're going to be looking out for. I also want to add that we got Nvidia's earnings yesterday, and now Nvidia is starting to pump a little bit. We were expecting that in my video yesterday. I did mention the market should pump a bit before we see a bigger move to the downside later on. And that's what's happening thus far. Later on today, we do have Dell announcing earnings. I will talk about that a little bit later on. As a reminder, Nvidia's earnings were quite solid. They actually beat on their EPS and revenue, very strong amounts of growth. And we saw many of their sectors when it comes to like looking at their data centers and their margins looking quite good. This was very promising for investors. And right now they basically shattered all expectations. They did a great job. They deserve a lot of respect for that. And I think that there's a good chance that this could really help the markets, at least to some extent, especially because the market's been at extreme fear lately. There's lots of fear in the markets. People are expecting, this big dump. That's why I think we might see some temporary relief, and we'll see if that could last. And then on top of that, we will eventually form some kind of top. So here's my view, just to be very clear about this, in case anyone is confused. Okay, we are going to fill this gap down here and dump to the 580s or even lower than that. We will eventually do that. Maybe, sometime in March, if not by April. There's a good chance it's going to happen. But before that happens, I'm looking for a temporary relief move as the most likely case. And then we will dump like later on, as time goes on, right? So I just want to clarify that for the people who are confused and asking me questions. Let's make that very clear. So what do I see for now? We're going to gap up today. We should gap up. Sometimes when we gap up, what happens is SPY dips a little bit first and then starts pushing. As long as SPY does not lose 594, we're favoring bulls a little bit more for some kind of relief bounce closer to the 600 area. If 594 fails, then we could be dipping to like 590. And if that fails us, we are expecting that gap fill to 584. Okay, so watch those levels just to be safe. As long as when we open up, we get some kind of dip move and a bounce. As long as 594 holds, this could be slowly getting closer to like 600, right? And if we could break 600, I'm going to be looking for like 602 and 605 as our targets for a temporary relief move. And then we will likely get a rejection soon, but we're not ready yet. We're just looking for the relief move for now. Keep that in mind. This is just a temporary bounce. It's not going to last forever, just temporarily, because we will eventually return to the 580s. Same thing with the QQQ. It's looking promising right now. We're going to gap up. If we can break past 518.5, we look promising. We'll see if we get some kind of dip first before it starts to break that resistance. If that breaks, we're looking for essentially 521 and then 525 is our potential target. So I'd be watching those very closely. Now, if we end up losing like 512 or so, we're looking for a move lower to like 506. There's a good chance we kind of dip here and start pushing higher for a move like this. That's very probable for the QQQ. If we could break 518.5, looks a little promising, especially thanks to Nvidia for a temporary move up. So for the short term, we could be pushing to the 525, maybe even higher. Well, for now, we're going to look at 521, then 525. And then later on, as we get closer to like mid-March to April, I'm going to be looking for the 490s on the QQQ. So I hope that's as clear as possible. Temporary move up, then later move down. Russell 2000, this is tricky, okay? We need to hold this support here. We're barely holding support. I don't want to see this lose 213. If that fails, we're going to be dumping lower. Whereas an inverse essential is like pattern, as long as that holds, we could be looking for a rebound for like 217. ES looks promising. We have a trend line of resistance around 6,020. If we break that, I'm looking for 6,050. Looks like it's trying to accumulate here, so this is typically a little bullish. Unless we lose like 5950, I will be concerned if that fails us. For now, look for an attempt for 6,000, 6,020, then 6,050. I do think ES is going to try to push a little higher slowly through these levels for now, and we'll see how well it does. NQ is trying to bounce. We're looking for the 20 EMA 21,396. If that breaks, I think we could get closer to about 21,500 for a temporary move up. As long as we don't lose 21,000, we do favor some kind of like rebound move. If we lose 21,000, I turn bearish, guys. So keep that in mind. I think we try to push a bit higher to the 21,500s. Then there could be a rug pull coming later on. So keep that in mind. For Bitcoin, we're trying to rebound here. We're looking for 88,000. So if this rebounds, there could be some kind of push, at least to start things off. Nvidia is looking a little promising. Like I said, we had that inverse head and shoulders like pattern, but I'm not worried about the pattern. I just want to see, can we break past 140 or not? It does look like it wants to go a little higher for like 136 towards this trend line right here. So see this yellow trend line, that's going to be our resistance. So can we get to like 136 to 140 in that range? If 140 breaks, we push even more, or do we reject off here and start dipping? I'm going to be looking for a temporary move up, at least based off this chart, and that could be a little bit more promising for the markets. Tesla, we're at resistance. Previous support becoming resistance. I would like to see us get close to 300, and then we'll see if we get to the low 300s. That's possible. But keep in mind, I do think Tesla will eventually dump to 250 to fill its gap below. There might just be a temporary move up. It's just a very, very temporary move. I hope that's as clear as possible. Apple, looking at the chart, it's on life support. It's kind of just barely holding this 238 area. It's looking kind of lackluster. So we have to see if 238 holds. If it does, that's going to be a good sign, at least for us for the time being. So keep that in mind. So that's going to be very, very important. And then for others out there, we're going to be looking to see what happens, especially as time goes on. But that's what I'm essentially seeing, at least for the time being. We'll see if Apple can get back above like 240 just for a temporary move up. Otherwise, there's going to be like it's just barely holding support right now. We have to be very patient with this as well. So keep that in mind. That's going to be very, very important for us. For other tickers out there, we also happen to have, let me just double check this. Palantir trying to rebound a bit. We could be looking for a test of about the 95 area if we could try to hold support. So that has potential in my view. And then for a few more, let's try to be quick with the rest of these. We have Coin trying to rebound. We have a gap to fill below, so it could return to like 216, then bounce for like 220. Amazon could be trying to visit this trend line, which is going to be around just under 220. So a small push could be coming. Meta could be looking for 689 to 690. We'll see if that breaks or not for a temporary move up, and we'll see if we reject. Microsoft could be looking for a test of like 403, and we'll see what the reaction happens to be. We also have resistance on Google at this trend line. We'll see if we break past this or not, so watch that very closely. The VIX has a head and shoulders right here. We have this left shoulder, a head, and then a possible right shoulder. There's a gap above, so I wonder if we come up to fill that gap and then start tipping. I would like to see this pan out just temporarily. This could be indicative of some upside for the markets just temporarily. But later on, I do think there's going to be a massive spike coming as we get very close to like mid-March. There's going to be another big spike coming. So this is just a temporary move. So please keep that in mind. Anyways, that is it for my video. I want to thank you all so much for listening. So have a good day, guys. I'll be back with another upload in a couple of hours. Until then, let me quickly get this video out there. And I thank you all so much for listening. Have a good one and peace out.